Does wisdom come with age? Some of the wisest people in history have left us with quotable gems about getting older. As your birthdays add up, what's your opinion about growing older? Tonight on The Best Times, we're talking aging. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. What do you think about growing older? We all have different views on aging. The famous painter Pablo Picasso said, "We don't grow older, we grow riper." Well, as we ripen on the vines of life, what's on your mind about growing older? Tonight on The Best Times, we're talking aging. At what age do you think old age begins?
60.
60.
Yeah.
How old are you?
63.
50. Because I know AARP says so.
There is no age. You don't get old.
Now, how old are you?
I am 21.
Well, of course you don't get old at 21.
I'm 57, and I'm starting to see, the eyes and the joints and the things aren't working too good as they used to.
Old age at 60 plus?
I guess I would say 65.
65.
Well, today, old age probably starts at least 70.
70.
75.
It never begins.
It's probably all in your mind.
Oh, well, I kind of believe that age is a state of mind, not a number. So I really can't answer that question for you.
At what age does old age begin?
The year after the age I am.
All right, now you've seen the video. I will ask all of you individually, at what age do you think old age begins? Jimmy, you can start.
Okay, I think it starts at 65. It's the retirement age. You qualify for Social Security. You have other benefits that begin at that point. So I think nationwide it's 65.
A good number as any. What do you think, Ruth Ann?
Well, I was just going to say, the age of 65, that was an arbitrary number that the government picked. It didn't have anything to do with old or not old. I personally think it's when you become infirm, and now it's probably in your 80s.
Ken?
I'm kind of surprised to hear the numbers.
Yeah, are you?
Just because, if old age starts when you're 65, then when you're 64 and the next day is your birthday, you're not old yet. But when you wake up that next morning, you're old. So for me, it's more of a state of mind as well. Really, if it were truly a state of mind, I'd probably be 14. But I think it's relative. You look at, when I remember when I was a teenager and I thought of my parents in their 40s and I thought, oh, gosh, they're old. Hope nothing happens to them today because they're really old. And now, that I'm a little older, it's, the guys that play from the white tee box on the golf courses to the blue ones, they're the old ones. So I think it's all relative.
Sure, it's all relative.
It's all relative.
All right. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Okay.
I just agree with pretty much everybody. I think beyond 60-something, your body does do some sort of weird kinds of things. I couldn't stop my body from doing them, but I agree with Ruth Ann that it is how you see yourself. And if you see yourself as, I'm old now, then you wear that. But if you see yourself as, I'm feeling pretty good today and I'm going out after it, then you look younger.
Well, that's like the famous Satchel Paige quote. I don't know whether you probably heard this before, but he said, age is a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Now, Satchel Paige, I just want to point this out. You might think he might not be an expert on aging because he was a baseball player, but he actually played his last professional game at age 59. So maybe he did know something about aging. But I'm curious, how much of how much of all of you think that aging is just in our minds?
Well, I mean, I think it's in your body too.
A mental attitude.
There are some things that happen, but I do think if you have a very positive mental attitude and you don't so much spend a lot of time thinking about how old you are, but you think about what else I can do and what's my next challenge, then it's a little bit better, I think.
Well, let me put that another way. Let me go back to Satchel Paige because he had another quote. He was a good pitcher, but he also had a lot of quotes. He said, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are?" You would be 14? Is that the way I understood that?
Sometimes mentally I think I'm there. I don't know. I don't know how old I'd be, but I have to I'm reminded when I look in the mirror at how old I am because I don't feel like I'm as old as I really am. And I feel like I'm still a kid in a huge world and I'm trying to get to do everything. And man, when I step in the mirror or when my back hurts or my knee hurts or I look at all those pills I take in the morning and at night, I think, I'm not that young anymore. But mentally, I don't feel like I am. Physically I do, but mentally I don't.
You know, years ago there was the Pew Research Center did a study on growing old. And I believe they interviewed something along the line of 3,000 people of various ages. And they asked them pretty much the same question. When does old age begin? And the average answer from everyone worked out to be 68. 68. However, for the 50 plus age group, their answers were roughly 10 years older than what I am right now. So I think there's a tendency, and do you agree with this, that people always seem to, throughout their age, always seem to think that old age is maybe 10 or 15 years older than what they are right now?
Well, I think we always feel that we're still capable of doing many things. You ask about how we feel. Other than physical activity, I think I'm as young as I've ever been. There are not many things that I cannot do except physical activity without feeling it. And old age, we spend more time in old age than in any other age bracket. And I personally have already spent 25 years at it, if it's 65, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the longest lifespan we have is old age. You have infants, you have children, you have preteens, you have teenagers, you have young adults, you have adults, you have middle age, and then old age. And we spend more time in old age than in any of those other categories.
I don't know about you, but I kind of wish I had known that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Maybe I would.
Good perspective.
Yeah, maybe I would have put it all into perspective. Well, I asked a couple of more questions at the Senior Expo, so we're going to take a look at them right now. What's the best thing about growing older?
Nothing.
In your opinion, what's the best thing about growing older?
Freedom.
Don't have to work anymore.
You don't have to report to people. You sort of do your own thing.
Oh, retirement, of course.
Experience.
Maybe just like having perspective on life. You know, just not, you've been there, done that. You don't need to like take everything so seriously.
You know, I think family, for the most part, being able to share the memories.
The best thing about getting old is being able to say what you want to say and not hurt anybody's feeling. And then to dance like nobody's watching.
And what are your greatest concerns as you grow older?
Oh, wow, that's a hard one. My greatest concern about getting older is being lost in the system.
What are your greatest concerns as you get older?
Who's going to take care of me?
Well, we all want to keep our health and we all want to keep our minds.
What's your greatest concern as you get older?
Well, I can't drive anymore.
Being limited in the things that you truly want to do. Just don't want to be by myself.
Being able to care for myself as I grow older without being a burden to the people I love.
that you're going to run out of money before you run out of time.
Just making sure that I have a good time the rest of the time I have left.
All right, we got some interesting answers there, I thought. So let's start with that first question. In your own experience, what to use the best thing about growing older? Who wants to start with that one? You start.
Oh, well, I think the very best thing about growing older is you know a lot more. So the decisions that you make truly are more wise most of the time. I mean, you just have such a huge historical perspective that you didn't have when you were in your teens, or even as a young adult, or even as an older adult. So I think that wisdom it truly is golden.
You think, does wisdom come with age?
It
like the poets say?
It doesn't for everyone, but experience comes with age. So perhaps not always wisdom, but when you've had an experience that you can relate back to, that's different than when you have lots of experiences that you can relate back to.
Ken, what do you say?
Well, I certainly agree with Lynn. For me personally, the best thing about growing older is that I have my first grandchild. And you know, I've always heard there's no feeling like the feeling of love when you have that grandchild. Oh man, I'm feeling it. Yeah. So I think it's enhanced relationships. I would just say better, more mature relationships. My wife and I are closer than we've ever been. It's just, for me, getting older has been relationships.
That's awesome.
Ruth Ann?
I agree 100%. I think you do get closer to people. You value your friends. You know, you look to your friends as a bouncing off of what's going on. That life experience is phenomenal. But I think you just 70 is the new 35.
Love it.
I like that. Okay, can I quote you on that?
Sure.
All right, 70 is the new 35. And Jimmy, what about you? What's the best thing as you grow old?
I think freedom of mind, freedom to go places, do things, say things, take part in activities. Not afraid to take a chance, take a risk. I think freedom.
Age gives you freedom. I think that's an interesting answer. Do you think that as we age, we mellow out?
No
do
question.
Do we all mellow out? Why do we mellow out with age?
I think we've had so many hard knocks over the years, we know it doesn't do us any good. So why not roll with the punches? Why not mellow?
Yeah. Are you?
And you don't overreact to things. You know, you take it within the scope of life experience and go, okay, that's going to go away in a little bit. I don't need to get all up in arms over it.
Yeah.
The concerns are different. I mean, when you're younger and you are concerned about growing up your family, it's a little bit less intense when you're growing up your grandchild. I speak from that perspective too on my first one. So it's all different. It's like there are things that you had worried about in the past that's almost too late to worry about now. So you just let some of those go a little bit. And like Ruth Ann said, you listen to your friends who've had those experiences, and you don't just say, well, that's not the case for me. You say, is that the case for me? Or, you know, you begin to question this in a nice way, though, in a mellow way.
Well, mellowing's not a bad thing, is to mellow. No. Let's talk about the other question. The greatest concern that people had. I thought there were some interesting answers there. But I will ask you again, all of you, what, in your experience, is your greatest concern as you age?
Well, that's changed several times since I've reached this stage of old age, but health to me is the biggest concern, because I have known a number of people who all of a sudden just had an instant health issue and became debilitated or hospitalized or no longer able to function. I used to think it was money, but I think it's health now.
Ruth Ann, what do you think?
I actually have two things. One is that in spite of all the experience that you get, the life experience, I cannot convince my children to change. You know, they have to make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
We can tell them all we want, but
they don't listen to us.
No, they will not listen to us. They
of course, you listened when you were a child, didn't you?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
I was goody two-shoes. Are you kidding? But the other thing that I worry about is when I do start to have issues of slowing down and all, will my world become talking about health issues? Will it become, where did you get your prescriptions? You know, I have a doctor's appointment next week. You know, which seems to me that you've just limited yourself terribly. But yet I hear it all the time, so it's like, okay, is today the day?
Ken, what are your greatest concerns?
Really, mine are related to both what they said, which is health, but it's really 3 words: aging in place. You know, most senior adults want to remain where they're comfortable at home, and that's my biggest fear, is that my health will be to a point where, and my family will be to a point where I'm not able to stay at home, and that's probably my biggest fear, is having to be forced to live somewhere else that I don't want to be. Yes. And that is a huge concern of a lot of seniors. We hear it every day.
It's true. Aging in places is a major issue. And of course, you know, you can make changes to your home up to a certain point, but there may get that point in all of our cases where we've got to move out, we've got to go somewhere else. Something else has got to happen.
Oh, it's definitely 100% the unexpected, because I've already talked about liking to control things. So a part of what everybody said, like, right now I feel great. Will I feel great 10 years from now? Will I feel great 20 years from now? Okay, so what does that look like, feeling great? And what does that look like, not feeling great? And then to reference a person there who was on the video, which I thought was great, that said, we're afraid that we'll run out of money before we run out of time. And it is the truth, because if you think about it, maybe we've all saved and we did what we were supposed to do, but heck, we didn't think we were going to live to be 102 either.
Yeah.
So what if we do the unexpected?
It really is. When it comes to finances, it really is kind of a roll of the dice, isn't it?
Totally.
Because, you know, yes, you've saved money. Yes, you've got this little nest egg here. But how long is it going to last? You can calculate all you want, but you can't calculate your final age.
Well, and don't forget, too, in a spouse-spouse situation, one spouse, their family may only live into their 70s, where the other lives to be 106. And that makes a big change in your finances. You know, I want to spend the money while I'm here. I don't want to save it for him to have a sweet young thing.
Let me point out a couple of things, because there were about 2 or 3 responses in there that I thought I was surprised by them. There was one woman, her greatest concern was she didn't want to be, her fear was being lost in the system, which I thought was an interesting answer. What do you think she meant by lost in the system?
Well, seniors are discriminated against. They're ignored. They're given a second-class citizen statusship. Not that people intend to, but they do. And I think that's part of what she's talking about.
And I think another part of that, too, is our system, our healthcare system. I think a lot of people assume that when they get older, they'll be taken care of. Yeah. And if their family's not available, they think, well, okay, the government will take care of me. Well, that's just not true. And I think people that are insightful and think ahead and are able to plan are going to be in the best shape when they're older to make sure they are taken care of. Because if you're just expecting someone to do it, oftentimes you're sadly mistaken, and it doesn't end in great circumstances.
Just swallowed up by our healthcare system.
That's right.
Totally.
And so many resources are tied to, can you use a computer?
True.
You know, Social Security, all of those types of things. And the 70s and 80s now didn't grow up with computers. And so they are really struggling with it. Or they have these contracts that are itty bitty little writing that the older person can't read. You know, and I think that's, I agree with Jimmy about them being discriminated against.
Let's talk about, you sent me an email and you wanted to talk about multi-generational living. So that's a big mouthful. Why don't you explain what it is?
I think it's becoming more common for different generations of the same family to live together. I mean, we hear the jokes about the kids, you know. I've got 3 daughters. They've all gone. 2 of them are back.
Congratulations.
But we've had periods in our life when a mother has stayed with us, a father has stayed with us, and a grandmother has stayed with us. And so you have to be conscious of how that changes life. It changes finances, it changes emotional stability, it changes eating habits and everything. Particularly when you're needing to move a senior loved one in the home with you. And a lot of those things need to be thought out in advance before making a quick step. Oftentimes, though, there's not enough time because a lot of times that happens from the emergency room or from a hospital bed discussion. And so I just encourage people to think about seniors and what are the consequences of them moving. I think it's a great thing that when children are able to bring their senior loved ones back home with them, but think it all out. I mean, just for example, my power bill at my home has dramatically decreased when my 3 daughters left. Sure. Now it's back up again.
There you go.
There are a lot of things that are affected by multi-generational living.
All right, let's talk about something else. I did a show, well, it's a few weeks back, on exercise, the importance of exercise. How important is exercise as we age to each one of you? Is it important? Do you exercise?
There's just too much evidence to indicate that you better keep exercising. I know I personally try to walk at least 30 minutes 4 or 5 times a week, and I usually walk with some weights, all of which is designed to stave off a little bit older stage, you know, to keep active.
Yeah. Anybody, do you guys exercise?
I do stretching because I have to stretch because of some of the issues I have. But I think it is important. And when we talk about exercise, I think physical exercise, I think of exerting energy, but I think also senior exercise is really continuing the movement of joints. And it may not be something that you're just worn out.
Well, it's like exactly what Jimmy said. He's walking.
Right.
Walking, we don't think of walking really that much as exercise, or even gardening. If you can get out in the garden, or perhaps you have a hobby that makes you, and that's exercise. We don't think of it in those terms. So it doesn't have to be running a marathon.
Well, you're right, because one of the issues with seniors is balance. So a very simple exercise is to stand on one foot for as long as you can, and you're not exerting a lot of energy, but you're training your body to react to when you get off of balance. Mental exercise too is critical. Just doing things like crossword puzzles. Start writing letters with the opposite hand. It makes your brain think more. Do things opposite. Feed yourself with the opposite hand. Doing things backwards or different keeps your brain active.
Mm-hmm. Which is just as important as keeping your muscles active and your joints working.
Take a different route in your car.
Right.
Don't follow where you go on autopilot.
Exactly.
Or maybe parking. This is what I do. This is my small contribution. Parking as far away as I can park in the daytime so that I have to walk. And then once I'm parked, I'm like, I'm not going to repark. I'm just going to walk it, and then I have to walk back in that same direction. It really does make a difference.
That's exercise.
Of course.
What about eating? Because I've also done a show on that, healthy eating. I did a show last season on that. How important is healthy eating as we age?
Well, it's important at any age, but perhaps more so as we get old, because so many quality foods, and I'm talking about fruits and vegetables like our mother told us we ought to eat, can actually take the place of medication. And so proper diet for any age, but especially for a senior, is critical. It should be a well-balanced diet, a lot less red meat and more fruits and vegetables are certainly good for us.
All right, one last question. What's the key to happiness as we age?
Well, happiness is an inside job.
What do you mean by that?
It's something that you create yourself. You don't go somewhere so you can be happy. You be happy wherever you are at what you're doing. And so it's an internal thought. It's an internal emotion that we can control and should control ourselves.
Anybody else want to jump in on happiness?
Well, I'll go back to relationships. I think for me it's relationships. Keeps me happy. That includes spiritual relationships. For me, that is critical. And it keeps me positive. It keeps me enthusiastic and optimistic about life in general.
I think it's focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't do. And so if that ship has sailed, there's another one coming by. So you hold on to the things that you still can do that are pleasurable and wonderful, and those other things you think, did I really need those? Nah, probably not.
And you can develop new things that you can do within the parameters of what your body's able to do.
Well, I've often heard that happiness is making sure you have something to look forward to in life.
That's good.
So that's my contribution. That's all I know. Well, I want to thank all of you for being on The Best Times. We've been talking aging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.